I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and today I'm excited to be joined by Becky Newton to talk all about the latest season of Netflix's The Lincoln Lawyer. And one of the things I wanted to start off by talking about was some of the conversations that you had with creator and showrunner Ted Humphrey when you first took on the role, because it sounds like that was a really invaluable part of figuring out who Lorna was going to be as a character, but also a lot of her backstory, because, as we've kind of seen over the seasons, there's a lot that's kind of teased that we don't necessarily get in terms of her backstory. And so I was just curious about how those conversations really helped you to cement her at the beginning.
Well, I can honestly say that never in my career have I had a part with such an interesting and varied backstory from day one. We learned in the pilot episode of Lincoln Lawyer that Lorna is Mickey's ex-wife. She's very interested in law, very good at law. We don't really know why. And very quickly, that gives so much backstory and so much potential for the future. So one of the greatest gifts of this part has been that she's already we already know so much about her and want to know so much more, and the part can really go in any direction. So I do remember right in the beginning with Ted Humphrey just asking more about Lorna. Like, why is she so interested in law? Why is she so smart? Why isn't she a lawyer yet? We had all these great discussions, and I'm in such good hands with Ted and Dalen and the writers and Michael Connolly. They really do have a great sense of these characters and where they're going to go. Um, so never in my wildest dreams would I have guessed when we filmed that first episode that in season 3 I would be standing in court addressing a judge as Lorna. Um, Personally speaking, in my career, I never quite imagined myself in a drama, never mind a legal drama, never mind, as I said, saying things like, Your Honor, may it please the court. I would have laughed. And yet here we are, and I'm having the absolute best time. I love this part so much. I feel like there's no limit to what she can do and what the writers can do with her. I feel like the luckiest actress alive.
I think that's such a great point, though, in terms of it being a newer space for you on the drama side, but coming from a background where you're so experienced and so comfortable working on a TV show and building out a character in that way. And I was curious how you kind of used that experience of the confidence and the comfort, but the elements where you felt a little bit out of water to really align with Lorna, because that's also so much of her journey that we've seen throughout the show.
Yeah, I one thing I really love about Lorna is that she has no problem being a fish out of water. And I think that's something I latched onto right away. This is someone, the way she dresses, the way she acts, there's nothing necessarily courtroom appropriate about her, but yet she absolutely belongs. And in every facet of this character, whether it came to the wardrobe or the words she uses, there was never this idea of like make Lorna fit in. It was let Lorna stand out. And I've been so grateful because I keep mentioning the wardrobe because it's so obvious that's something that pops with her. She thinks her like courtroom appropriate attire is a suit, but it's like bright pink. And for her, that is power dressing. And it is real for her. And she does feel her best and most powerful in that way. So all of the creatives have been very open to letting us explore what makes Lorna so different and so awesome.
I love that, and I don't know if it's a spoiler to kind of talk a little bit about her journey into passing the bar exam this season, and we get to see her finally as a fully fledged lawyer. And so I wanted to ask about the conversations of what do her outfits look like now, because I feel like there was so much specific thought that went into her very first court appearance look.
Yes, I think that's a really great question. Someone like Lorna, I think the way she dresses says a lot about her. We always talk about how Lorna shops a lot on the real real. She doesn't care if something's new. She doesn't care if it's like straight off the runway. She just knows what she loves and what makes her feel really good. One of the first discussions we had this season is what would she wear to the bar exam? I think in the script it was originally a tracksuit, and we all discussed what does Lorna's tracksuit look like? Because she's not wearing a pink hoodie. Lorna is wearing something else. So in the episode, I'm actually wearing a Dolce& and Gabbana tracksuit and Balenciaga sneakers, not because Lorna's going to go work out, just because she wants to be comfortable while taking this bar exam. And I have to applaud again the producers for when they see the options, they said, yeah, we'll go with the bright floral tracksuit, And they knew that that made sense for this character and it wouldn't get in the way of telling the story. And I've loved that. I've loved the collaborative bravery that's gone into this particular character.
Was it a little bit different filming the scenes where she's taking the bar exam? Because I think to your point, we're so used to seeing her very comfortable where she is, and those scenes really allowed you the opportunity to play out, I'm feeling a little bit nervous. How am I navigating through it? Okay, now I'm breathing. Now it's overwhelming, but now I feel comfortable and confident again, and just all of those different flows.
Yeah, and again, that's the gift because it would be very easy for Lorna to be confident all the time, to walk into every room, super smart, bright clothes. And this season allowed us to see what would happen if Lorna got really close to her dream. And what happens when something you've wanted for so long and worked so hard for, you get super close. I think we've all had those moments where you wonder, can I actually do this? Like you never thought you'd actually get that close. And when you finally do, we see these moments of doubt, but she overcomes them. And I've been again, so grateful that in such a short time, we see so many sides to this one character.
I also think with what you were talking about earlier about she's very comfortable being a fish out of water, that one of the great things about the way that she's written is that she doesn't change who she is for other people. She doesn't absorb herself into different versions of herself depending on the scenario and the situation. And was that something that you kind of latched onto very early on with the writing and with the scripts?
Yeah, I think it was very clear. This character on the page from day one, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of filter before she speaks. And that's a great thing. She's not really worried about what people are going to think. She's actually just trying to tell the truth all the time. But be supportive and be positive. But there's a great freedom to a character like that, where it's unfiltered, it's truthful, it makes it kind of funny, but even the humor comes from the fact that Lorna's just kind of stating her opinion and doesn't really apologize for doing that. I think we all wish we could be more like that in real life.
Absolutely. Do you think also a lot of that comes from the group of people that she's around, that this community, this family that she has, because it's a whole group of people who never ask each other to change or to be anything different as well. And I feel like there's so much value in those relationships because of that.
Yeah, I mean, we also, if you remember, Lorna was married to Mickey. I can't imagine there's a lot they haven't said to each other. So I think that dynamic is so refreshing. Imagine two characters that aren't dancing around the right thing to say, and they're just trying to cut to the chase and they're trying to be great lawyers and they're trying to support each other. It creates this incredible freedom. And like I said, a lot of comedy comes out of that, but then a lot of connection comes out of that. And I love it. I absolutely love it.
Right. And that's one of the spaces where we don't necessarily know all the details about their marriage and how it ended and kind of how they got to this really beautiful friendship that they have at this point when we meet them in the show. But I wanted to ask how you and Manuel really kind of figured out what that looked like for the two of you on screen and what that specific chemistry was going to be with each other and their history, given that it's not necessarily in the scripts and the audience don't necessarily need to know because we feel it.
Right. I think we haven't had a lot of time to go back and speculate. But what is very clear, and I think this is both as people and as characters, there's so much affection and there's so much fondness, but there's also this great honesty. I think they've been through a lot together and they've seen the worst in each other and the best. But right now, in terms of this law firm, what they really want to do is bring out the best in each other. I love how much they root for each other. I love that Mickey wants Lorna to succeed, and we see it over and over in season 3. I think he's her biggest fan, and she's his biggest fan. And I believe that them being married before is part of that connection, even though it didn't work out. And I believe that they're probably even better friends and coworkers now because of their history together.
And there's something really beautiful in the way that she kind of always knows what he needs from her. She knows if he needs her to tough talk him or he needs some sort of like gentle guidance or just a distraction by making fun of the tie he's wearing in court and telling him to destroy it.
Right. Yeah.
And so I just wanted to ask a little bit about that dynamic between the two of them as well.
It's fantastic. And again, what I love so many things about playing Lorna is that we're not mad at her when she makes fun of Mickey's tie at the wrong time. Like he's nervous, he's going to court, and she's just like, your tie is dirty. And we've all had a friend or a lover that's like that, that in a certain moment they just say something, you're like, I can't believe you just said that. So much fun to be the person that's able to say those things. I absolutely love it.
I also wanted to ask about your original journey and kind of like going through the scripts because I've heard you say something before about one of the things that you love doing when you get any new character or any new script is finding the imperfections in a character because there's no such thing as a perfect person. It doesn't exist. And so there's no such thing as a perfect character. And how did you dive into finding all of Lorna's beautiful imperfections?
Well, for me with Lauren, it was really about the fish out of water. And I kept thinking, and Ted and I had some really beautiful talks about where is Lorna from that she's so scrappy, that she's working so hard to belong as in terms of like this legal world. And I get the sense that Lorna was always really underestimated in her life. So she's had to walk in and go, no, I'm smart, and no, I'm here. And yes, I'm wearing 5-inch yellow heels, but I'm still the smartest woman here. Like she's had to prove herself over and over because the sense I get is when people meet her, they might think one thing, but there's just so much more to her. So that's something I really thought a lot about is that I don't think she was born into a rich family. I don't think her life was necessarily like, I don't know that she went to an Ivy League school and then ended up. I think she worked her way really, really hard and really scrappy. And I think the more people are around someone like Lorna, it's like, oh yeah, watch out for her. Like she knows what she's doing. Watch out for that one.
It also seems like she knows how to use that to her advantage. There's times
Yeah.
where she's trying to get someone to open up with to her and to trust her. And so I was curious about like the way that you think about her kind of going into certain situations and really using the idea of I know how people are going to initially see me, and I'm going to use that in a very calculated way to my advantage.
Yeah, I think that's her superpower. She says, I know how you see me. I'm not going to defend it. I'm not going to get mad about it. I'm going to use it. And I think that's a really cool nuance to this character. She's not defensive. She's just really freaking smart. And I love that she's able to be a bit of a chameleon and shapeshift to get information. I think that's a really great talent that she has that comes in handy in this particular world, and one that I personally love. I love when Lorna is trying to manipulate someone to get information. I absolutely love those scenes.
And in terms of the fish out of water element, what I love is that we feel that less and less as she kind of finds herself in her skin more. And I feel like there was such a turning point for her in season 2 when she had a confrontation with the professor who previously made inappropriate advances, which was a huge reason that she had left law school originally. And
Mhm.
how did you kind of in your performance and the way that you play her want that to create little changes in who she was for you?
Well, I mean, think of it's so clear how badly she wanted to be a lawyer. And all I could think of was how miserable that experience must have been for her to give up on that dream. So in season 2, when she was able to confront that monster, what she was really saying is, I think to herself, like, Lana, you're not going to let that guy and that experience derail something. It's part of your destiny. So in season 2, I think she reclaimed something she'd lost. And in season 3, it's full steam ahead. Um, I think when we see something like her choice in what her first day of court outfit is, like she's still Lorna. She doesn't necessarily look like a typical lawyer, but you could tell she feels amazing. And I think we see from her outfit choice, from how she carries herself, that she's going to be a force and it's not going to look like what every other lawyer looks like. It's just going to be Lorna's version.
And also just watching the relationship that she has with Cisco is really beautiful to see because I think again it goes back to, you know, they both know everything about each other. They never ask each other to be anything other than who they are. You know, and she was allowed to kind of go through those little natural hesitations and some of the questions ahead of getting married. But now that they're in that different place this season, how did you want that to just feel a little bit more settled? Because it felt like it was really just the specificity of the wedding that brought some of that up.
Yeah, and that's again what's been incredible about this show is we take these huge leaps from season to season. I think season 2 was clear, these two people wanting to get married, the scenes were sweet. They're trying to figure out if it was going to work. And in season 3, we see them back at work, working together. And I've loved that the writers are comfortable giving it air. Like they don't need to be lovey-dovey all the time. Like if you're married to someone and working with them 24 hours a day, you're not gazing at them across the room all the time. Most of the time you might be. But I think that's where the writing has been so confident in that way. We don't need to keep proving the same point over and over. We can show all these different dynamics within certain characters and within the relationships. I think that's it feels like we've done 100 episodes with how much we've learned about all of these people. But the fact that we're only in season 3, it just, I can't believe it. I find it pretty amazing that they've been able to cover so much ground in such a short amount of time.
Yeah. And also in terms of a lot of the court sequences, I wanted to ask about how that felt really different for you because, going back to what you were talking about at the beginning and this being your first time stepping into the world of drama, it was the first time that you were filming court sequences and now it's a very different place in those last few episodes because she's an active participant. You're filming scenes going into chambers with the judge and, she's immediately very comfortable piping up, but she has to kind of be reminded to come to the bench at the beginning.
Right. It was funny because the first season and even in the second, I often had to be in the court. And I was like, I am so glad I don't have to do that stuff up there, like what Manuel had to do. And then out of nowhere in season 3, I'm standing there addressing the court and monologues of legal jargon. And it's a whole different planet for me. I'd never done anything like that in my career. I was nervous, and how great to be able to be nervous going to work and then kind of conquer it. And I felt like Lorna and I were working together because it is nerve. I'm used to doing like pratfalls in front of a group of people, but I wasn't used to getting up there and delivering the lines and owning them in a dramatic way. And I felt so supported and I felt excited. And I think Lorna and I had that in common. It was new territory that we were just incredulous that we were able to do it. And when it landed, it felt so good. And it wasn't always perfect. I had a bunch of takes and everyone around me was really great about it. But it's nice to be at this point in my career and still feel like getting to work in the morning nervous that I'm going to actually be able to do it.
And it's almost so great to have that come at a point like season 3 where you've got so much comfort with who the character is already that
Yes.
then you're adding that extra layer to it.
Yes. Yeah. It will always be something just incredible to be surprised and to be surprised at like what I've been capable of doing. And I'm so grateful that the writers believed that I could. And I can't wait to see if I pulled it off. I hope I did.
Did it change any of the preparation that you had to do going into certain scenes, just in terms of working with more of a volume of language and some of the terminology a little bit more?
Yeah, it required a lot more focus. And I'm used to a lot of scenes that like you're holding a dog and then you run through and a lot of movement. So for me to stand completely still and not have it's not a conversation, it's a monologue. I never went to acting school. I studied history a long time ago. And it felt like acting school. I was like, oh, it felt like this incredible challenge that I got to face. And I loved it. Now I love all of it. I want to run around with the pug. Maybe I could stand in court with the pug. That I would really like to do and deliver a monologue at the same time.
Because it must have been a complete reversal of the challenge of filming a lot of court sequences where she was not necessarily engaging and talking, but you had to be super active and listening and thinking about what is it that she's taking in and learning in this moment.
Yeah, this was owning it. And also like Lorna's also insecure in certain moments, like wondering if she's pulling it off and me, Becky, wondering if can I remember everything? Because the words are so you can't slip slide around these words when you're addressing a judge. So it required a different kind of focus and one I'm very grateful for.
Yeah. There was a moment in the season where she was kind of giving a speech to Izzy about, going through that journey of not necessarily needing to go back to the version of yourself that you were before, but figuring out who you are in this pathway forward. And I wanted to ask about how you felt like that really related to Lorna, because when you were giving that speech, what was so beautiful is it's advice to someone else, but it's also advice that she's talking herself through as well in the way that she always monologues a little bit.
Yeah, I think the idea of letting go, like we all have so much backstory, and it's so easy to hang on to that and say, like, well, this is who I am, so I can't move forward. And I think Lorna really does believe that today it's all starts now. Who are we going to be from here? And she's learned that. She's had to let go of so many experiences, like with the professor in season 2. It's like she could have stayed away from law forever because of that one experience, or she could face it and move forward. And I think Lauren is a really great example of full steam ahead. And she wants that for the people around her as well.
Yeah, because even in passing the bar and becoming a fully fledged lawyer, it's this thing that she's had this idea of it for so long and she's kind of played it out in her mind. But then the reality is some of it matches up and some of it doesn't. And we get to see those moments where she is a little bit overwhelmed trying to balance everything. And so, how did you want to make sure that it was something that A, felt very realized and lived in, but also something that is that step up and does cause adjustments?
I just think in real life, I feel like anything we envision, like marriage, kids, you have this idea of like, okay, then I'll do that and it'll go this way. And it never goes the way we think. There's always something you couldn't have imagined or didn't expect. So I just try to approach with Lorna and Law the way I've sort of lived my life is like we don't know. And just when we pass one, we like go over one hurdle, it doesn't mean we know what the next hurdle is. You just have to keep going and sort of expect these different twists and turns and just keep facing them and charging forward.
And when you were talking about her costumes as well before, you were touching a little bit on just her movements. And I feel like you have such a specific walk and mannerism to her as a character. And I was very interested in how you found that in the early stages of playing her.
Well, it's funny because I'm 5'3" and I tend to play very tall people. So back when I did Ugly Betty, they used to put me in 5-inch heels. And I didn't so much walk as I like hobbled forward. And I don't know that I ever really figured out how to walk in heels. So I think part of even the Lorna character, she puts on these huge heels, she's putting on this big show, but she can't totally walk in them. And I kind of think that's part of her charm and vulnerability is she's trying to be this giant and sometimes she's just a little wobbly, but she's just going to keep going. So I think it's part of maybe all these tall characters that I play, but I try to just own it because there's something charming about that. Someone in this amazing, incredibly crafted outfit who can't totally walk in them.
I also think there's something incredibly charming about the fact that she has these moments where her energy like moves very fast. You know, we see when she finally gets to go into court, she's physically running up and down the stairs, not waiting for the elevators. They're all broken. But at the same time, she also has a really calming and gentle energy for other people. And so
Yeah.
how did you find those kind of like two different sides of energy that she has depending on the situation and the people she's around?
I don't know, but I love that you just said that because I think that's very true that with other people, she's there to help, but her mind is going a million miles an hour. She's like a hummingbird. Um, so I don't know that it was intentional, but now that you pointed it out, I'm going to make sure I do that from here on out. Thank you for that.
Did you also kind of pick up early on in a lot of the scripts just her instinct with people? Because it feels like whether it's someone who is coming in as part of a case or a witness or, you know, Mickey's love interest, she's a very good gauge of character. You know, season two, she was like, that is not the person for you and I don't trust her. And season three, she's like, this feels like a good person for you. I could see this working out.
I think it's back to this self-appointed honesty. Everyone around Lorna knows, well, that's just Lorna. If she tells you she doesn't like your outfit, she's really trying to help you. And sometimes when there's a person who we all sort of expect them to tell the truth, they can get away with a little more. So I think that's just Lorna. I think she's used to telling the truth, and it's not really her concern how someone might react to that, but it's also part of the fun. I think she's considerate, but also unfiltered. So both. You have to be both because if you're just unfiltered, nobody wants to talk to you. And if you're too considerate, you're never really telling the truth. So she's like the perfect marriage.
Yes. And, you know, given what you were talking about with how much the writers have managed to give you and show of this character, but also how much there still is to explore, what are some of the spaces where you feel like day to day you're still getting the chance to just figure out all the little nuances of her at this point?
I mean, it's all of it. The show is incredible because it's this ensemble, and you put any two characters together, and it's a whole different dynamic. When Lorna's with Cisco, it's husband and wife, but also they're at the office solving cases. Izzy and Lorna have become great friends, great confidants. So they're talking about their personal lives, but also within the context of what they're trying to do at the office. Mickey and Lorna have so much history. And sometimes their conversations are about solving a case, and sometimes she's just making fun of him. Um, it just feels like no matter who they put us with, there's so much to explore. And again, it's magic. It's unbelievable. At the end of every season, it's like, oh my gosh, we've done this whole season. There's still so much more to explore. And with the guest stars that they bring in, like such amazing actors, and it's just like never ending, this well of what we could explore.
Yeah. I love how much there is still to explore, but also how much we've already had the chance to explore
Yeah,
over these
we
first
know
few
these people
seasons.
so well, but there's still like you could just go so many places because every case brings such different challenges and different questions.
Yeah, I love all of that. And it's always such a joy to watch your performance in the show. So congratulations on another great season. And thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so, so much. Have a great day.